Welcome to SORMAG's Writers Café, where we share the real writer's life over a cup of friendship, sprinkled with laughter and wisdom. My name is LaShaunda Hoffman, and I'm your host. This episode's sponsor, Building Your Readership by LaShaunda Hoffman, a new Kindle book. Are you ready to become a social butterfly? Inside this episode book, LaShaunda shares 15 ways to start building your readership. Increase your book sales as you learn how to be consistent with your book promotion. Each episode includes action steps to implement to help you become a social butterfly. Check the show notes for the link. All right. Sitting at the cafe today with me is T.B. Bond, Edwina Martin-Arnold, and Laura Stewart Schmidt. Welcome, ladies. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
I am glad to have you. So we are going to start with TB. She's going to tell us who she is, what she writes, and hopefully share us a little piece of her book. Go ahead, TB.
Hi, everyone. I am T.B. Bond. I write interracial paranormal romance, fantasy romance, and science fiction romance. I know that is a lot, but that is what I write. And one of my series that I'm actually most known for is a paranormal dating agency called Paris in Springtime. And I'm going to read you a blurb from one of the little side stories from Paris in Springtime called Ursa Major. And so this is the blurb from Ursa Major. What's a mermaid to do at the end of her life? Get a new one, of course. I've had this one for 70 years. When supernaturals need an upgrade, they go to Tristan Harvenheit. As the #1 potions dealer in the Mid-Atlantic, I deserve the best. And if I help out a friend while treating myself, it doesn't hurt either. Sparks fly when I meet Tristan, and not all of them the sexy kind. He is an arrogant behind, and I'm going to teach him a lesson. If he wants my recommendation with Paris in Springtime, he'll have to work for it. Sink or swim, baby. And that is the blurb for Ursa Major, a paranormal romance.
Okay. I have plenty of questions about paranormal romances. All right, we're going to go to Miss Edwina. You ready, Miss Edwina?
I am, thank you. And the book sounds really interesting. I'll have to pick it up and check it out. So my name is Edwina Martin-Arnold. I write romance and romantic suspense. I don't know how much you want me to go into my story right now. I started writing, had my first book published, I believe, in 2001, and worked my way up to Harlequin, and then unfortunate circumstances happened, and I stopped writing for about 14 years. I picked it up again. I'm really excited. I have 10 books. The Chocolate Romance series is the books that I want to read from, starting with the first book in the Chocolate Romance series called Chocolate Friday, and I'll have to set it up just a little bit. My readership kept asking for more love scenes, and although I love to read erotica, I do not want to write it. So the only way that I could figure out how to do it was to create a character who was a sexual innocent. And then you get to go through all of these wonderful experiences with her. So my character is a sexual innocent, and she's a little strange, a little unique. But she realizes unfortunate circumstances happen to her where she has not had romantic relationships, and she realizes she wants one. So she puts herself in therapy, etc. And she has a big breakthrough, and her friend says, okay, now you're ready for Chocolate Friday. And Chocolate Friday is an all-male review where the men are some form of chocolate. So this is my character, Olivia, at Chocolate Friday. Ladies, I have saved the best for last. Technically, this performer has retired, but I was able to coax him back just for you. The man who needs no introduction, appearing one final time. Ladies, say hello to the only spice you need, Flava, the thug stripper. The women go nuts. An elbow to my head momentarily distracts me. Sorry, the woman at the next table yells, then continues jumping up and down. My attention returns to the stage to see a pair of male hips rotating a perfectly shaped bottom as a female rapper screams from the speakers that she needs a roughneck. The sight robs me of thought. The man moves around in the stage in a slow bop until he's facing the crowd. He's wearing an open jean jacket with no shirt underneath, and his pants hang low on his hips, exposing black boxers. His attitude is hard, and his disposition is lazy. A real bad boy persona, complete with little gold hoop earrings in each ear. He saunters to the edge of the stage and scans the women slowly. His eyelashes are impossibly long, and his eyes are round and serious. It seems as if he hesitates on me. I know it has to be my imagination. So I'll stop there, and you'll have to get the book to see what happens with Olivia and Flava, the thug stripper.
All right now. Miss Laura, you ready?
Yes. Well, that's both of those are going to be a tough act to follow. You ladies' books sound great. Edwina, that is really funny. I didn't want to be laughing out loud on the podcast, so I kind of had to cover my mouth for part of that. I write mostly mysteries. I've got 2 published mysteries, but my first published book was a young adult contemporary, and a publisher accepted it, but there were some issues with the production. And it's been out of print for quite a while, so I just re-released it myself to just get it back out in the world. I thought it deserved to be out there. And it's called Sweeter Than Life, and it is the story of a 17-year-old girl whose blended families are really causing her a lot of anguish. She has a stepbrother who's on the autism spectrum, and her parents are really not supportive of her, but they're expecting her to know how to deal with this fellow. And that can be very challenging if you have no frame of reference for somebody who has special needs. And my main character, Wendy, decides that she's going to escape from her household by getting a job, which will have the double advantage of giving her money to go to college. And while she's at this job, she meets a boy who she thinks is just going to be the greatest thing in her life. And, of course, we all know how that turns out when you put too many eggs into the basket of romance, especially at that age. So here's when she is about to meet Sam. Can you drive me home? Kim asked. Wendy and I came together, and she wants to stay and swim. Brett had stopped where he was, several feet away from us. I wondered if he and Minette had plans for the evening, and if so, was Kim going to get in the way? And did Minette care? No prob, Minette said. She turned to Brett. Meet us at the side door in 5 minutes. I was right. They did have plans, and Minette didn't care. If Brett had been anyone else, I might feel bad for him. I replaced my barrette with a thin ponytail holder and put on my suit, a royal blue and white 2-piece with a crop top and boy shorts. Minette laughed the first time she saw it. What's up with the old lady suit? On someone with your body? Come on, girl, show it off. I laughed back and told her, the world doesn't need to see my cupcake. But the real reason I bought it was that you have to shave your bikini area, and it itches when it grows back, and you cannot run track with an itchy private area. Try it. But there were things you just couldn't say to Minette. The pool room was empty, and the water was shimmery blue and silent. I grinned and took a deep breath of chlorinated air. Someplace all to myself. I climbed up to the middle diving board and jumped off feet first, landing in the water with a satisfying loud sploosh. I kicked my way to the top of the water, broke the surface, and opened my eyes to see I didn't have the place to myself anymore. A tall, skinny guy with dark hair stood at the shallow end, a bunch of poles and nets and a bucket of additives at his feet. I opened my mouth to curse at the surprise intrusion and got a rush of tepid pool water for my trouble. It's not for drinking, the smart ass said. I'll stop there.
I'm glad I was on mute, too. You're trying to make us laugh over here.
Yeah, really.
That is cool. Oh, good, interesting story. See, I'm glad y'all share some excerpts. I want to know what draws you to the genre that you write. I want to start with Ms. TB. What got you into the paranormal, interracial, and what did you say, science fiction? You're doing all kind of things. So why did you choose to write those genres?
I have always liked science fiction and fantasy, to be honest with you. I was raised on it. My dad took me to Rathacon when I was like a little kid, probably too young to go see Rathacon. Star Trek was all. I was the kid that saw all the Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, and all of those other shows, and I didn't know that was odd. I thought everybody did that. And so I've always had a love for that genre. But funny enough, when I first started writing as a child, I started writing crime. I had serial killer stories. But I ended up switching from that because I didn't want my mind going there, because I felt like I would be pretty pissed if someone copied me. So I thought, let's go to a safer place. Let's do sci-fi and paranormal romance. So that's actually how I started writing the genre, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
and I adore it. I have fun.
That's good. I'm actually, the book I'm working on for the Kindle is a kind of sci-fi. I didn't realize that I was a fan of sci-fi until I realized that I had watched most of the Star Treks with my mother. I love the superhero stuff. So,
Okay. What's your favorite Star Trek?
Right now it's the new one with the black captain. I'm loving her.
Okay.
I was a Jean-Luc Picard person for a long time.
Yeah, Jean-Luc is in my house too.
Yeah, I love that. And then, but I love this lady because I didn't realize that this is supposed to be before Spock. I was thinking it was after Spock, but she's Spock's sister, and so it's before Star Trek. So it's interesting to see how they're doing it because the advancements that they have and everything. But
Spock has a sister?
Yeah. I watched the show because I was like, they explain why they don't talk. He doesn't talk about his sister, but yeah, it's really interesting how they tied the story together. And I was like, oh, I wish my mom could have seen this because she loves the Star Trek.
And I'm behind on that new series, too, because of the way that they put it out. So I was like, I got to find a way.
I ended up buying Paramount Plus because I wanted to see it, and I never could see it. And then I realized that it wasn't on CBS. It was on their streaming show. So
right.
Very good show, though. If you haven't seen it, very good show. What about you, Edwina?
Oh, romance books have been a part of my life as far back as I can remember. My sister was 4 years older than me, and she would read me Harlequin to help me fall asleep at night. So when I began writing, it was natural for me to go with romance. Plus, it was just the complete opposite of what I was experiencing in my career. So actually writing the books was escapism for me, and then I wanted to provide escapism for others. So that's how it happened.
What about you, Laura?
Oh, nothing is ever linear for me. I always have to be an oddball, whether I want to be or not. I got into YA because I think my writing voice kind of lent itself there. My voice kind of tends to sound like a 15-year-old girl, and with a little bit of adjustment, I can make it a slightly older or a slightly younger girl. But I do have that sort of attitude in my writing voice, and that worked out really well for me with my young adult mystery Until Proven Innocent. And then I wrote a domestic suspense novel, Don't Fear My Darling, where the character was slightly older. She was 22, but still at that age where you're trying to figure out who you're going to be. Mysteries, I've always loved to read mysteries more than anything since I was a kid. I'm thinking now, though, I kind of am moving away from that because I'm finding that I really enjoy just general fiction and women's fiction at least as much, if not more. I also have gotten kind of weary of murders and violence. When you read mysteries, you have to look pretty carefully to find a book where the on-stage violence is not off-putting to you. You're pretty much limited to a writer like Agatha Christie, who keeps everything off stage, but still gives you a good puzzle. And I am never going to be able to write like Agatha Christie. So I think that I've discovered that over the course of the decades, literally, that I've been writing, some of the stuff I really enjoyed was just a nice mainstream novel about somebody finding their way in the world, and it didn't necessarily have to be because they were solving a murder. So I might go in that direction in the future. But, you know, the great thing about being a writer is that we're not these Olympic athletes who one day aren't going to be able to do this with their bodies anymore. We can keep writing until we're 100 years old, ladies.
That's true. That is true.
I had a conversation. We were talking about how we write, and a lot of people, when they start writing, they write with their computer. And I was talking to a lot of old school writers who they write with longhand, or they write in a notebook, or they write in their little notes. So how do you guys write? Do you start with your computer first? Do you dictate it longhand?
That is absolutely hilarious. I'm going to tell you why. The very first 2 books I wrote on my phone. And then got really bad carpal tunnels and had to I had to do something different. When I was writing fan fiction back in the day, I went from head to keyboard. And for a while, after the phone incident, I was doing head to keyboard too, but then I started slowing down, and it was taking me months to write a story, and I ended up having to write in a notebook. Mm-hmm. So now I write in a notebook, and then I type it out. This is hilarious. Now, if the story is short, or a very or one concept where it's primarily romance and there's not a lot of political intrigue or any other suspense stuff for the story, then I can pretty much go from mine to keyboard. But if it's going to be something high concept like the story I'm working on now, then I have to write it in a notebook.
That's interesting, because that's how I start my stories on paper. And then I work my way to the computer. And that's funny, because you saying that you wrote on your phone, and I was a couple of years ago talking to some of the newer writers, and most of them didn't own computers. They used their smartphones. And so I was like, how are you writing on your phone? And, they're like, you just open up a notepad and you just start typing. And I'm like, man, that's a lot of typing. And 2 years ago, I did a nano, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try it on my phone and see. So I did dictation. I wasn't trying to type that little bitty. I'm one of them people who use your finger to type. I don't use my thumbs like some people do. And I dictated the story every morning. I would get up and do it. And I found out the story flowed for me that way. So I was like, okay, I see how they're doing this on the phone. At first I just didn't get the comprehension of it at all, but I think it's to each his own. You got to find your comfort zone. So I've just never been able to open the computer and type that way, because when I first started writing, oh my God, when I was 16, we had typewriters. We didn't have computers. And so you wrote all your stuff out, and then you typed it up, because you didn't want to waste your precious ink trying to type stuff and then have to make corrections and all that stuff. So typing was the last thing we did back in the old days. Edwina, what did you do? Do you like to use your computer?
Well, I was writing longhand until the late 90s, so my first 2 books were longhand. And for me, I'd write it longhand, and then typing it into the computer was kind of like the first cleanup of the novel.
Right.
But the third novel I ran into troubles because I was writing it longhand, and I wanted to move large blocks. And so what do? You cut the paper, you shift it around, and this is retarded, Edwina. You can just type it in. So I've transitioned to iPad, Surface, and computer is pretty much what I use now. And when I sit down to write longhand, it just feels weird. I do use my phone. Like if I have an idea that I don't want to lose, then I'll put it in the notes in my phone real quick, so I have it to write later. So that's kind of my process.
What about you, Laura?
Well, I'm an old lady, and like you, I remember typewriters, but I started out writing in longhand, and I'm very tactile, and I really love pencils and pens and paper, and I have quite a collection of pencils and pens and paper. But a few years ago, I made the discovery that I could write way faster on a computer with a good keyboard. We have a desktop in my husband's office where the keyboard is just so fabulous to the touch that I can just sit down and go on that thing and type amazingly fast. I can get 20 pages knocked out in a day easily if I'm on a roll. And I didn't end up with carpal tunnel. Actually, writing in longhand for so many years gave me osteoarthritis. So I can no longer write hundreds of pages in longhand. My hand will cramp up, and my writing's not as pretty as it used to be. But I've got to have something I do in longhand. So all my notes are done in longhand, and then I sit down and do the actual draft on the computer where I can move much faster. The computer thinks as fast as I do, and unfortunately my hands don't anymore. But I do. I really love ink and paper. There's just something about it you can't beat.
That's fair. I got a favorite pen and everything, and I know how many thousands of words it'll take before I have to change pens.
Wow. That's deep
pretty
right
good.
There. That's deep. I haven't gotten that deep yet. So like we were talking about all these notebooks and journals and stuff we have, and someone gave me for my 50th birthday. She gave me a journal, and it said Little Women on the outside of it, and I was like, oh, this is nice. I don't know. And so when I got home and looked at it, it was the words of Little Women as the lines. And so she said, what did you think of the journal? Did you use? I said, I can't write in that. She goes, what? I said, I'm weird like that. It's too pretty. I can't write in it. It sits there and looks pretty, you know. And then I was like, do you know how sacred Little Women is to me? I can't write on top of those words. She's like, you're so funny. You're so funny. But you know, we have our cranky coops that we do as writers. Do you all outline or do you plot as you go?
Well, honestly, I'm extremely strange. So what I end up doing is I do like a character profile for the hero and the heroine, and after I do that, then I have like these. It's like a weird plot meets outline situation where I've got like all of these bullet points that are like small paragraphs that summarize what's happening in that chapter for me, and then I just go write something, and hopefully it will be something like what happened there. Sometimes the characters are not in line with that plan, and I go off script for a while, and then I come back around. So it's kind of like a planter.
I like that word. Mm-hmm.
I do too.
I'm like that. That was one of my questions. Does your character hijack the story? And yours does sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Matter of fact, my villain hijacked his chapter the other day, and he ended up doing something completely different, but it was actually better than what I planned, so it worked out.
Yeah, that's what I said. Sometimes that's the fun part about it, is that you don't know if it's gonna hijack, and then you just they just take over. What about you, Edwina? Are you a plotter, outliner?
Well, you know, I don't know what I am. I'm self-taught. If somebody told me I had to go to school to write books, I would have pulled out my hair screaming, running the other way. So I'm self-taught. I just the books that I enjoyed, I tried to. Everything has a formula. So I was trying to figure out the formula. And it's basically there has to be a good conflict. Nobody wants to read about two people getting along. So boy meets girl or person meets person. They have some sort of conflict. There's maybe a couple of small conflicts along the way and afterwards. But at the end of the book, there's the HEA, the happily ever after moment. So when I was publishing with the houses, I had to have 2.5 sex scenes. One sex scene where they almost got there, and you just frustrate the reader. So it's not that regimented now with the 2.5 sex scenes. So the joy of writing for me is that I start writing and sometimes I don't know what's going to happen, and that's the joy of it for me. When I was with the houses, some of that joy was taken away because I had time constraints. So I had to be more organized in my writing. But I don't know how much you want me to get into stuff. But now I have the freedom to write as I wish, and I brought that joy back to myself.
Excellent.
I have a side question for you. Yeah, it makes sense. What makes you said you have to have 2.5 sex scenes? So what makes a good sex scene? What do you think makes a good sex scene?
Oh, well, I think based on my readers in the comments, I think I do the sex scenes exceptionally well. And my formula for it is I get into the character's head, and each person is going to make love differently. For example, Olivia in Chocolate Friday is inexperienced, so she's going to act a certain way. And then in Vanilla Chocolate, which is my interracial, where you have a black woman and a white man, my character is very experienced, so she's going to make love completely differently than Olivia does. So I really get into my characters' heads and try to figure out how they would make love. And so that's what I think makes, and I build a love story around it. It's not just two people hitting it.
Right.
But that's what I think makes my love scenes exceptionally good.
Yeah, that was helpful. Somebody said I'm doing a sweet romance, so no love scenes, and the person said, "Oh, you're just scared to write those love scenes. That's all." And I'm like, "You're right, because if you fire up a love scene, the readers never forgive you." So I'll just steer away from them.
Oh,
you know what?
I romance with a good love scene. My personal
love
opinion.
scenes are actually fun to me because I look at the whole entire thing as a seduction of the reader from the beginning. I like to start out with a foreplay with a lot of flirting. I will build up. You guys are going to be like, sometimes when you read my books, you be like, oh, I can't wait for this to happen. I like to watch Korean dramas, and they have so much build up just for you to get a hug or a kiss, and you just like,
right. And that's what I've been looking at. I'm like, that's what I was looking at. What is it that I love about that Korean drama? And I'm like, they don't have any sex at all, but you can feel their passion, It's a couple of them that I've watched a couple of more times because I'm like, I watched one last week that I had already watched. My sister said, it's in American, so I went back and watched it in American like I had never seen it before. 20 episodes. But I realized it was them falling in love with that attracted me to it. That he fell in love with somebody that he thought was a man, and so it was like, I'm falling in love. I don't care. I don't care what gender it is.
What was this?
This was called the King's Affection. Oh my goodness, I love it.
That's on my list. Okay.
It's a wonderful. I watched it in Korean, and then they came back in English. And I when they did the English version, I had missed a couple of things, because you're trying to read the translation. But oh my God, one of my favorites. That's on my list. I told you I watched it a second time. There's only 2 of them that I've done. Well, 3 that I've done that. I've watched a second time, like I had never seen it before, and cried like I had never seen it before. You make me cry. That's the best show ever.
Oh yes, like Hotel de Luna makes you cry.
Oh my goodness, I've seen that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes you cry.
And that's a whole different conversation. I have to bring you back when we talk about Korean drama. Oh, I love them. I love them. What about you, Laura? What do you do? Are you a plotter or plant?
Yes, I am a 100% plotter. Writing mysteries, you pretty much have to be, because the most logical and best way typically to write a mystery is to start with your solution and back up. And from there, you've got to put in your suspects, your red herrings, your clues. You have to make sure you're being fair to the reader. And I understood, one of the other ladies was saying about reading and you figure out that there's a correct formula. I figured that out also fairly early and learned how a story is supposed to be structured just by virtue of reading an awful lot. And for, I don't know, probably close to 40 years, I've had the same sort of structure that I use for almost everything I write. I put together 16 plot points. And that can change while I'm writing the book. I can add something, I can take something away, but I start out with the 16 because that splits my story into 4 manageable quadrants. You kind of like think of it as a 2-hour movie, and then you've got your segments that you're into, and you know that at the halfway point something big has to happen. So for me, that would be scene number 8. Something huge has to happen. And then you know that at about number 12, things ought to really be heating up. And at number 14, you ought to be looking at your climax and, the point where all seems to be lost for the main character until they step out and do something. So, like I said, it changes a lot during the course of actually writing something because, as the other folks have pointed out, characters can surprise you. And you can say, wait a minute, I got a better idea than that. Or sometimes you get feedback from a reader who says, the story slowed down too much here and I'm not engaged. So you make something else happen. But for the most part, I have to start with an outline. I've got to have structure. I am not a person who does well without structure.
I've been working on this book and I haven't come up with names. Usually I just have 2 names to deal with, but right now I've had to deal with 12 names. And it's a futuristic, so I was coming up with these futuristic names. How do you guys choose your names? How do you come up with your names for your characters?
For my characters?
Mm-hmm.
I tried to pick a name that means something to me as far as symbolism, or I may go look up a name to find out what the meaning. For example, I have a character in a post-apocalyptic story right now, and it's also time travel and magic. There's a lot happening in there. Her name is Pandora because you're thinking about bringing doom. You're thinking about also, in some ways, bringing hope. And she does all of that because, unfortunately, she's associated with the doom. And then she's also associated with the solution. So that's why I named her Pandora. And then maybe I can make a Pandora's box joke. I don't know. I haven't done it so far, so it may not make it in there. Welcome to my unboxing. I made it up for a TikTok. Welcome to my unboxing. Hello, it's Pandora. Who knows?
I like that one. Edwina?
I struggle with names. This is Edwina. I struggle with it. Sometimes I just look at the newspaper and pick out a couple of names. About the easiest in Chocolate, which one is it? In Chocolate Friday, the hero's name is Andre. Flava's name is Andre. And then in Vanilla Chocolate, it's his sister, so I went Andrea. But I struggle with names.
I just wondered if anybody else. I took a class with Piper Hughley. I hope I'm saying her name right. Hughley.
Piper Hughley?
Hughley. I want to say Hughley, and then I say the other thing. Piper Hughley coming up with character names, and it was such a deep class because the people really get deep with trying to find names. I was just like, that name sounds good to me. I wasn't looking at meanings and things like that. So I like how you did that with Pandora, looking at different ways to look at the name. And, because some readers do go that deep. They want to know why you call that person that and and sometimes like you said, I just got out the newspaper. So you're not going as deep as that going.
Characters out of the newspaper, or well, maybe not the newspaper. I don't really read that, but I get characters from other places. Somebody walks into the room and the character might be their name, or they might have half the name. I've done that too, and it all depends on what's happening with the character. Like I have another character, her name is Wednesday, and the reason why her name is Wednesday Adams. Originally her name was just going to be Wednesday, but then I went the full distance, and the reason why I picked Wednesday Adams is not because the girl is necessarily morbid, because she is very, very odd. That character is very odd. She does things that you don't expect. Of course, there is that darkness piece, which this character doesn't necessarily have that. She's extremely weird. She's also kind of epicurious in all her nerdiness as well. So if she sees something that she thinks is going to be an experience, she is going to go do that, even though she that's not what a lot of. It's almost like she doesn't live with restraint in some ways. It's like she doesn't understand that concept, and she's very technically minded, very into her lab and creating things. So it's almost like I have this when I am interested in something, then my attention is completely on it. I'm completely focused, and then when it's over, it's gone. And so she seems kind of flighty and strange, but she's very sweet and very interesting, and it's been fun writing her so far. But that girl, I have to put a leash on that girl myself.
That's interesting.
Well, ladies, I apologize, but I have to leave now.
Oh, you
really
said
enjoyed
that.
My time and my discussion with you all.
Well, can you tell us how they can get in touch with you, Edwina?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. The key to everything is my name, Edwina Martin-Arnold. So Facebook, Edwina Martin-Arnold author. Twitter, Edwina Martin-Arnold 1 for number 1 author. And my website is my name. All my books are available on Amazon. So please check them out.
Thank you. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you, ladies.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So my next question for you is, what has surprised you most about being a published author?
I'm sorry. Can I pause for just a moment? I didn't get to answer the part about naming characters.
Oh, I'm sorry. Edwina dropped in and changed my mind. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I wanted to let the folks know that I have about 7 books of baby names, and they're different types of books. There's a couple that are older, so, they'll have names that you don't hear that much anymore. And then there are newer ones, which will have the names that you hear now, but you wouldn't have heard 40 years ago. This helps me if I'm trying to pick a name that's appropriate for a character of a certain age. You can't have a woman my age named Madison or Mackenzie. People were not naming their daughters those things in 1961. And likewise, they're not naming their daughters today, or boys' names have stayed a little bit more the same as they always have been. The girls' names really have gotten creative, and people aren't naming their daughters Susan and Linda anymore. So if you name your character something like that that's unusual, you have to have a reason for why you did that should come out in the story, so that you're not harming your reader's suspension of disbelief. And for last name, for some bizarre reason, I actually saved a telephone book, White Pages, from 1983, probably for the same reason that I use it now. It is a fat book. It's probably 2 inches thick, because remember, everybody had a landline back then, and everybody was in the phone book. That's how I get my last names. You can find anything. You can flip through, get an idea of what maybe you might want it to start with, and you can flip through and find anything with any type of nationality that you want to represent. Now, the tricky part of that is, one time when I was a teenager, I gave my blonde, blue-eyed male character a Chinese last name without realizing it. Well, once I realized I'd done that, I thought, okay, I don't want to change his name. How can I work this? And so that gave him a whole backstory of how he had been adopted by this family. So sometimes you let your characters do their thing, and they'll tell you what their name is.
I love it, because I was thinking he must be adopted.
He is. That's exactly it.
I love that. I use, for my historicals, I use the census. You can go back years and years back. But the book I'm working on now, the time is 3,500. So I was like,
oh, wow.
The names that I have are 20th century names, and I was like, oh, I gotta go a little bit higher, So I just put in Google futuristic names, and they came up, and they kind of used a lot of biblical names and added a little bit on to that, and so
I would expect that to come back around. I would.
Yeah, and so because that's what I did was I didn't know that at the time, but the book that's connected to it, I used biblical names because the planet that they went to was, I guess the word is colonized now, and they by Christians, and so they taught them the Christian name, and so I was like, okay, that's how they don't have, you think they have some kind of weird names, and their name, one of the guys' name is Caleb, and one is Joshua, and it's because their mother picked the name out of the Bible that she was studying, and so I like having
the easy ones.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to
throw out the Demarius and Deborah. A
lot
of people don't even know all the Bible names.
Yeah, some of them don't. I know Tamar, when she first came out, people were like, what is Tamar? What kind of name is that?
Right. And I actually have a character named Vashti.
Wow.
I've heard of that. Yeah, I had like Laura, I have a couple of books, baby books, and then I found a book one time. I was at a book fair, and they had a book that was Bible names. And I was like, all these names is in the Bible. When you go back and look it up, you're like, yeah, they really are. You might have said it just one time, or so it's interesting how you how you get into the different names and stuff. And I like that, one thing that I don't like is when I'm reading a book and I can't pronounce the name, and I'm like, what? So if I'm going to do this science fiction stuff, I don't want names that's so crazy that you can't pronounce them. And like, what? How do you say that name? And you're pronouncing it one way, and then I was listening to a book and the lady was pronouncing the word, and I had to go back and look at the blurb. I'm like, I'm like, she's saying that ain't how the name is pronounced. It kept sounding like she was saying Linda, but the lady name was begin with a V, Vinda, and she sounded like she was saying Linda, and I kept saying, who is Linda? But the narrator was saying Vinda, sounding like Linda. So, like, okay, if you're gonna have these weird words, you gotta make sure people can understand it.
Exactly.
I toyed with putting pronunciation keys and things of that nature in books, and sometimes I try to take an opportunity to have someone mispronounce a name and have the person correct it so I can write it out phonetically, but sometimes I can't always make that work out. So I'm definitely hoping to have that in an audiobook, because I had a story called Hunter's Creed, and the main character has a name that looks like Tyrone. Then I find out a long time ago, which is one of the reasons why I use this name, is that Tyrone is actually pronounced Tyrone. It's an Irish name. And I was like, oh, Erykah Badu, yes. Can you imagine that song called Tyrone instead of called Tyrone?
Well, that's the guy from the Game of Thrones. That's his name, Tyrone.
It's close to that. See, now I'm drawing a blank. But his name is really close to that.
But his is spelled different, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see how they pronounce it. Well, that's the same way with Sean. It's Sean. And I love that. I love the spelling, not the word, because my name is LaShaunda, but I love that I call it Cian. And so I want to name my child that Cian, and my husband like, if it's Sean, S-E-A-N. It's spelled S-E-A-N. And he's like, I said, but I want to call him Cian. And my husband's like, no, we're going with Sean. And so I told my son that. I said, I want to call you Cian. He's my mama, please. No. So I
have a cousin named Sean. That's when I learned it, too, when I was little.
I was doing some research in the books, and like I said, futuristic stuff, and they had a guy's name, and it's spelled Cian. And I'm like, oh, I get my Cian. His name's got to be a Cian. I'm putting it in the book. So, and hopefully people will pronounce it that way because it's not spelled Sean. It's spelled Cian. I hate it. So I'm excited about Cian. I guess I'll ask my question I was trying to ask. What has surprised you most about being a published author?
Difficulty in marketing. I mean, I knew it was going to be hard, but I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be to get in front of people and be seen. There's so much competition out there, and I know that everybody can read as many books as they want, so it's not like it's that big of a problem, but just being seen. There's a lot of good books out there, and just no one knows that they're out there because they just can't see them.
Yeah. I'm learning that because I'm a promoted person, but I've found that a lot of books aren't being seen because the authors aren't telling nobody. You know, and you find a good book. And I'm learning. I'm on this Kindlevella, and most of the people that are on there aren't promoting their book. And so they're like, nobody's reading my books. And I'm like, well, who are you promoting to? Who are you telling about? Well, Amazon should be bringing people over here. I'm like, okay. You know, so I think that I always say when I work with clients that you have to get into the promotion mindset. And that is believing in your book and finding these readers who will love your story. You know, you can't expect the reader to come to you because they already got who they like. So for them to find out about you, you got to get in front of them. You know, and that's one of my questions I was going to ask is, how do you get in front of a new reader? We know Laura, that's probably her biggest problem, too, is the marketing. We have conversations about marketing all the time, me and Laura.
I could not say it any better than it has already been said, so I'll just pass on the question.
Laura is one of my writing group members, and we have long conversations about marketing because that's the part she hates about the writing thing is the marketing. She wants somebody else to support.
Yeah. Writing is fun. Asking people to buy your book or review your book is not fun for me. I mean, I understand that it needs to be done, and actually I shouldn't say that it's not fun because when I've done events at bookstores, I really do enjoy doing those. I like meeting people. You know, I'm outgoing enough that I enjoy doing that and putting together an attractive table that stands out when you're in, for example, if you're in a book fair like the one I'm doing in a couple of weeks at the Poplar Bluff Library, all the books are going to be white table. Not mine. Mine is going to be tricked out. And that's always kind of fun to do, you know, because I'm a mystery writer. I've got like a splattered tablecloth and a caution tape and things like that I put on it.
There you
so
go.
I can have a little bit of fun with that. But still, it's just, you know, more people are going to engage with you than are really going to buy your book or read it. And it is fun to talk to them, but they're not all going to buy. And there's no way you can get them all to buy. And so, you know, I think for me, what I've had to figure out is, am I going to be satisfied with the fact that I achieved my goal and I became a published author? Or do I want to work for something different at this point? And, you know, I'm not all that old. I still got a few more years to live. So I might as well have another goal and see if I can do it bigger and better next time out.
Okay.
I reserve the right to get better every day.
Amen.
That's good. That's a good way to look at it.
It is.
I found for me, is that if the reader enjoys my book, the ones that do read it, the ones who do take the time to buy it, you know, and contact me and say that, you know, it helped them or they're enjoying it, you know, they're enjoying the story. Yes, I would love to sell millions of books, but it's that one email that you get when you're down in the dumps and you're like, forget this, y'all can get the finger. That's that email that push you to the, you know, oh my goodness, LaShaunda, this lady told me the other day, I did a virtual tea with her, and she said, I'm on chapter 5 of your book, and I was like, oh my God. You're like, cool, that's so cool, you know. Because that was my dream. I don't know when I started writing that I thought about I was going to sell millions of books. My dream was that somebody was sitting at home in their bed reading my book. You know, like I'm reading somebody's book. You know, I sat up all night reading your book. Oh, my goodness. You know, and that's my dream, is to get that, to get somebody to say that, hey. And my other dream was to have it in the library, so that happened. I was never one of those people who wanted it in the bookstores, and then as the bookstores started closing, I was like, okay, I got to get another dream, you know. And I realized that my ultimate dream was to be in the libraries, because that's where my love of books started, was in the libraries. You know, I went to bookstores as a kid, but maybe as a teenager, but as a little person, I was at the library every Saturday, you know, getting 10 books to carry home. You're not going to read all those books. Yes, I am, and I'm going to bring them back and get 10 more. You know, and so that's and I think that most authors, they really need to, what is the dream of this book? Because a lot of times they're so caught on releasing it that they don't think about what happens after it releases. You know, and if you're writing more and more books, you see, as you write more books, your readership starts to grow, you know. Right. And so a lot of people that get that one book and they never get to the building the readership because they're just disenchanted about everything, because it's not working the way they thought. They thought that they were going to sell 5,000 books, and maybe they sold 50. You know, and then so they're like, well, what's the point? What's the point of continuing writing? The point is to build your readership. You don't come out here with 5,000 readers. You don't. If you do, that's fantastic. And if you sold 5,000, that's even more fantastic. But the average person doesn't. And it's mainly because they don't promote. They don't. They like, I'm not begging people to buy my book. They can go to Amazon and get it. It's there.
But if you write it, they will come. No, they won't.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. We wish it did, but it doesn't. It just makes me so sad when people say, I'm not writing anymore. I've seen so many people say that they're done. I'm done. These readers are horrible. And I'm like, the readers don't even know you exist, because they got, you know, some readers have 15 or 20 people that they follow, that they love, you know, and you have to slide in there and be number 21. You know, but we never get to that point because we're so upset that it's not going, you know, that dream of being the bestseller is not, it hasn't hit, and then you know, go on.
Well,
so
and it doesn't hit for everybody, and you know, sometimes you have to adjust your expectations, like you were saying about getting mail. I had 3 different readers tell me that the ending of Don't Fear My Darling made them cry. And they didn't mean in a bad way that it was depressing. They meant that it was a very touching ending. And that's probably worth an awful lot of sales. You know, I mean, of course, the sales would be great too, but that was worth a lot to hear that from people. And 3 different people said the same thing. That said to me, I'm doing something right, and I just have to keep doing it right.
Exactly. And I think that sometimes people miss that. They only think about what they're doing wrong. They don't see the good things. And I always tell my clients, celebrate every milestone. Even if it's one person that wrote a great review, shout out to the world about that review. Sometimes that review that you're talking about get other people interested. Oh, somebody actually read her book. Well, let me go see her. You know, if they don't think you're getting any reviews, they're not going to check you out. Oh, you wrote a book? I hear that all the time. You wrote a book? Yeah, in 2015. You know? Yeah, I did. You know, and so that, oh, you know, I've talked to people that I've talked to. You know, sometimes you talk to people and it goes past them, so they're not even paying attention. You know, they're listening, but they're not listening. So you say, yeah, I published my book. Oh yeah, when? Yeah, how long has it been out? You know,
you are so right. Because I've had people, like my own relatives, I told them, and they know I go to signings. But the other day, one of them said, "Hey, when you going to write another book?" I said, "I'm working on one right now." "Oh, is this your second one or your third one?" I said, "This is book 16. And they're like, "What?"
Oh my goodness! I've published myself 3 books, but I've been in anthologies and different things like that. And so I was counting. I was like, oh my God, I got 8 books. And that's what I'm saying to myself. Mm-hmm. And so that's, you know, somebody said something to me, and so it was like, well, when you gonna write another book? I said, well, I got 8 books. 8 books? What? When did you? But, you know, I laugh because I tell people, I talk about promotion, I talk about my books. One of my sisters is a reader, one wasn't, and then now as they've gotten older, they read. And so my sister posted on Facebook that Amazon told her that her sister had books on Amazon. I'm at home cracking up because I see this post on Facebook. My sister has books on Amazon. She ordered the books. She ordered both books, and she's got them on her bed. She took a picture and she posted on Facebook. And I'm laughing, and I said, "Well, you have one of those books because I gave it to you for your birthday." She goes, "Oh, it's in my house?" I was like, "Yeah, it's in your house somewhere." I said, "One book you didn't come to. She had to work, so she didn't come to the book signing." And she never said anything, so I never gave her a copy of it. So, it's a book about book promotion, so I figured it wasn't no big deal, you know. The other one was a coloring book, so I had gave her that because she was saying she was stressed out and she needs some. So I gave her a coloring book and crayons and all that stuff. So I'm assuming it's still in the bag and she never pulled it out. But I used it as a lesson, and I said, even your sisters don't know you got a book. You know, my book been out since 2015, and this girl comes up, "I thought you were selling your book on your site. I didn't know it was in Amazon." I'm like, "What?"
Oh, that is real now. You're real now.
Yeah, I'm official. You on Amazon? You real? You for real? I'm like, everybody else knew, but where you been? But that shows you that people don't, when you are, if they don't think you're with a publisher and you're publishing yourself, they don't think you're legit. You know, you're just selling it on your website. You like some little salesman trying to jank them for their money. Then when they find out you're in Amazon, "Are you in Amazon? Oh, you in Walmart? Oh, you're in Barnes and Noble? Wow." Yeah. I said that one time. I was like, "Oh my God, my book is in Walmart." I just was looking through Walmart and typed my name in there, and it was on the Walmart. You know, it's in Walmart's online thing, and I was all excited and stuff. And so I got 5,000 messages. "How you get in Walmart, girl?" Go check Walmart. You probably already in there too. If you're using Amazon or I think at that time I was using Smashwords, so Smashwords put me on all the other different platforms. But you know, people don't know what they are in because they just think it's Amazon, and sometimes Amazon put you on other stuff too. Yeah. But it's funny how you're doing all this promotion, and every now and then somebody will bring me back down to earth and go, "Who are you again? What you do?"
I never left Earth. I
was just floating every day. Just floating a little high in my little balloon.
I sell books on the regular, but my feelings are hurt every day.
It's like, okay, okay. I guess everybody don't know who I am. Okay. But that's okay. I got to promote. Look, I say, I just got to up my game a little bit more. So, tell somebody new every day, something different, tell them about your books. Hey, did you know I got 16 books? What?
Exactly. Or you look and you see you only got like 30 reviews and you're like, oh.
I read Cicely Tyson's book, which is a really good book. And it was at tweet sales. I was looking at the things. I was like, how has she got reviews? It hasn't come out yet. And people are on there. That's how I come when people say, oh, people don't write reviews. People write reviews. You just got to find those people who write reviews. These people who write reviews. This book is going to be so good. I can't wait to read it. I'm like, how you write a review? Give it 5 stars if you haven't read it yet. Like, okay. So, yes, people write reviews. I've seen people who had thousands of reviews, and I'm like, wow, who are your readers? Can I get
yes,
20?
My readers don't leave a lot of reviews. They some of them do. Some of them do, but the majority of them leave ratings, I notice. And I'll take that because I need
I tell people that all the time. Ratings are just as important. Sometimes, like when I listen to Audible, so I just give it 4 or 5 stars or whatever. I don't write a review. I just give them the stars and keep it moving because I'm not going to do all that on that phone. So you have to think.
I'm not mad at all because I'm the same way. That's why I was like, that's why I don't even get angry about not having reviews and just having ratings. At least you took the time because that's more than I've done in the past sometimes.
Yeah. Exactly. And you have to know, I tell my clients all the time, you have to know your readers because that way you don't get your feelings hurt that nobody's writing reviews. A lot of people don't write reviews. They just don't. That's not something they do. But they might send you an email and tell you how much they enjoyed the book. So you want the review or you want that special email that came from them, and you actually know who that reader is. When people write a review, most of the time you don't even know who those people are because there's no way to get in contact with them. There's no way. But when that person sends you an email, you got their email, and you can send them a nice little thank you note. With reviews, you're not supposed to contact them at all.
Right.
So I'd rather have the emails myself because I can build a relationship with that person. You can't really build a relationship with reviewers because you're not supposed to. That means you became friends with them and they're giving you 5 because you're your friend. I ended up having to stop writing reviews because I was doing the magazine and they were telling me that I knew those people. You know them, so you can't. They wouldn't accept my reviews because they said I knew them. And so
yes, that happens a lot too.
Yeah, you have to, you got to when it comes to reviews, you got to figure out which one is more important. And I'm about building the relationship. I'd rather get an email from as a matter of fact, one of my first emails I got from my book, we're buddies now, we're best buddies, writing buddies. And it's because she sent me an email. If she had wrote a review, we probably never had a relationship, and it's been, 7 years friendship. Whereas if she had wrote a review, it's just been a review, and we never would have talked or said anything to each other. So you have to look at,
People send me emails. They send they tag me on Facebook or something.
Okay, that's still good though.
So, it's pretty cool. And a couple of them became my martinis because that's my street team TV Bond martini. Because I'm shaken, never stirred.
That's too cute. What a cute tagline.
It's so weird because I write paranormal romance and science fiction and fantasy romance, but my last name is Bond, and I tried to brand myself as strictly TV Bond, but there is a pharmacy out there that's called TV Bond. So I had to use something else in order to set myself apart. Right. So people wouldn't go looking for me for drugs or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I have a client that has to change his name. His man is a serial killer. He's like, I don't want to be, so I don't want nobody looking for him. looking at my stuff.
Yeah,
so
that takes it.
Oh,
That takes
man,
it right
that's
there.
his real name. So he's like, I gotta get a pen name now. I'm like, oh, that's messed up. But
TV Bond is my real name too. Essentially, it's my initials because I have a very long ethnic name and then a long hyphenated last name, and that takes up a lot of space on a book cover. So I went shorter by using my initials.
I definitely understand that. I have a long name. So I understand.
Oh,
that.
yeah. See, my name is probably as long as yours. It's not there. You got like 8 letters? Yeah, mine's 8 letters. And the people so horribly, they try so hard when they say it, and I'm just like, please, just don't. Just call me Tia. Just call me Tia. I've had people call me Tequila. I've had people call me Tequila. I've had people call me marijuana and all kinds of stuff. And I'm just like, okay.
The sad part about it is they be serious, too. They serious. My daughter's name is Nicola. And every time we went to the doctor, they called her Nicola. Nicola Hoffman? And we sit there, Nicola. I say her name is Nicola. Oh. Nicola. I said, I'm gonna name it a character Nicola.
There you go. And you know what's even more funny is that when people are not mispronouncing my name, they want to tell me stories of what they did in Mexico, and I'm like, that's okay.
Why would you care?
We didn't become a confidant because my name.
It's close to Tijuana.
Yes, my name is my government name is Tijuana, which is Spanish for Aunt Jane.
Oh my God, I didn't even know what it meant.
Yes. And we know Mexico has Tijuana, which is not the same as my name. It's close. But a lot of people start telling me about their time in Mexico and where they think my parents made me and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm thinking like, come on, y'all. I didn't have a good experience in Tijuana. So I won't share. A lot of people apparently have. A lot of people have told me some stories just randomly. They just about what they did in Mexico, and I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm glad you had a good time, and one day I'm gonna go. But it's just interesting.
Yeah.
I have the opposite problem. I had a Jane Smith maiden name, and I have a Jane Smith married name. Incredibly, there was somebody in my high school with the same exact name, first, middle, and last. And when we moved to where we live now, there was another Laura Schmidt. And you wouldn't think that it's that common, but both my maiden name, Laura Stewart, and my married name, Laura Schmidt, are apparently just, like I said, I might as well just be named Mary Jones or something like that. So I have to use both names on my writing to set myself apart from everybody else with the same name. I think next time out, I'm probably just going to go for a pen name. And
I'm going to tell you, I have a day job in human resources, and you'd be surprised how often you see certain names repeatedly, and maybe that middle initial will help, and maybe it won't.
Right. Exactly. Because a lot of times people have the same middle names, too. Parents are not really all that creative when it comes to naming their kids. You'd be surprised. They go with trends. Well, yeah.
It's like you either get super creative, or you get it's like you get super creative, or you get nothing.
Everybody is naming their
one
kids.
Person I came across, his mother really loved him a lot. I would tell you his name, but just the name was just long, and I just appreciate it. It's one of my favorite names. But it was a long name. It was it was just long. It showed up on 2 lines when you look at it.
Oh my goodness.
It shows up on 2 lines. I was like, you had an awesome name. I love that name.
I know. I tend to
like know how much your name means until you have to put it on your shirt. When I was in the military, my last name is Carruth. And they was, oh man, they messed that name up so much. Carruthers. It was horrible. And then I married a Hoffman. And so they said, are you going to hyphenate your name? I'm like, are you crazy? I don't even got enough checks for Caruso and Hoffman together. No. And I'm like, last names are hilarious. They struggle with my last name when I was my maiden name. They still struggle with my married name. They usually put Bonds or Barnes or Vaughn. Yeah, I get Huffman all the time. Miss Huffman, I'm like, it's Hoffman. Even when I spell it, Huff. But people say, my name is LaShaunda. I get LaShaundra all the time. I have spelled my name and put the R in it. And I'm like, why? When did I say R? I never said R. LaShaundra. They call me, I can't stand Chandra. That is not my name. Put the L in front of it. LaShaundra. I had a teacher that called me that all the time. My mother said, why aren't you answering her when she called you? I said, because she says LaShaundra. My name is not LaShaundra. She used to get so mad.
There you go.
You know I'm talking to you. I'm like, no, you're not.
There you go. You know what? That happens so much. I actually put it in a book one time where someone used the wrong name, and the person was like, that's not my name.
I get all the time. That's why I try to say people's names right. And being on a podcast, my tongue is like, I feel like I'm Steve Harvey just messing up everybody's name. I'm like, oh, my God. I'm like, I'm sorry. I keep saying your name wrong. I'm sorry. My tongue refuses to listen to me. I see it in my head, but my tongue's like, I'm just going to say whatever I want to say.
Do you remember that episode of Star Trek when Dr. Pulaski, it was the first episode with her, and she came up to Data and she was talking to him and she called him Data, and he wouldn't answer her? And he said, my name is Data, and she tried to tease him, and he said, one is my name and one is not. Exactly. I have enjoyed this conversation, ladies. I hate we're at the end. Can you tell us how we can reach you online? Absolutely. You can reach me at bondgirlblue.com. That's my website. Or you can reach me at Never Stirred on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. And you can also reach me, TV Bond, on Facebook. I'm loving all these names. These are great names, nicknames. What about you, Laura?
I have a website, laurastewartschmidt.com, and Stewart is spelled with an EW and a T at the end, and Schmidt is spelled with a DT. And that's also the way to find me on Facebook. And on Twitter, my handle is Laura UC Writer. All right, ladies. I would like to thank our guests for sharing with us today. I hope what they shared with you was something that you found very helpful. They gave some good tips. I want to thank our sponsor, Building Your Readership by LaShaunda Hoffman. Check the show notes for the link to purchase. I want to thank you, our listeners, for taking time to listen to the podcast. I have 3 questions for you. Did you learn something from this episode? If you did, please share the podcast with your community. Number 2, would you like to be a guest for an episode? Contact me at onesormag@gmail.com. And my last question, have you promoted your book or business today? If you haven't, go showcase those wings. Someone needs what you have to offer. This is LaShaunda Hoffman, and I will see you on the next.